I was living in a romance novel. I was even pretty sure I shared a name with the main character. So, naturally, I figured I was the main character. Armed with what I thought was impenetrable plot armor, I immediately tracked down the story's heroine, Ava Sterling. When I first found her, she was a broke 20-something drowning in debt, hustling 2 jobs just to stay afloat, but her eyes burned with a stubborn pride that captivated me instantly. I didn't waste a second. I launched a full-court press, a relentless campaign of charm and persistence. Even when she looked at me with tears in her eyes, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and exhaustion as she told me she hated me, I just smiled. In my mind, it was all part of the script, the classic, I hate you, but I'm secretly falling for you trope. It wasn't an obstacle. It was just the beginning of our love story. The full-size mattress in my walk-up apartment was barely big enough for one person, let alone two. It was a tight squeeze, but I secretly loved it. The cramped space was the perfect excuse to wrap my arms around Ava's slim waist and bury my face in the warmth of her neck while we slept. The cheap wooden frame, however, protested every movement with a chorus of groans and creaks. Like right now, I blinked, my vision blurred with sweat, and pressed myself closer into her embrace. The air was filled with the rhythmic squeak of the bed frame and the sound of her ragged breaths. Sweat slicked the fine hairs at her temples, and her dark, glistening eyes were locked on mine with an intensity that made my heart hammer. When a drop of moisture trickled from her hair onto my neck, she leaned down and gently kissed it away. It should have been a perfect, intimate moment, but all I could think was, I'm exhausted. So much for the gentle, delicate heroine from the audiobook. The real Ava was strong, surprisingly so, and nothing like the girl described in the story. I'd been living in this high-stakes romance for 2 years now. When I first realized I had the same name as the hero of the story I'd been listening to on Audible, I was convinced I was him. It was my story to live. And now, 2 years into my grand romantic adventure, here we were. My mind started to drift when a sharp sting on my lip brought me back. Ava was staring down at me, a frown creasing her brow. What are you thinking about? Before I could answer, she scoffed, a knowing look on her face. Oh, let me guess. It was that smoothie I just drank, wasn't it? No wonder it was so sweet. You put something in it again, didn't you? Ethan, it's been 2 years. Are you ever going to grow out of these cheap tricks? I didn't say anything. What could I say? When I first started pursuing her, she'd been so cold, so distant. I'd had to pull out all the stops, relentless persistence, and yes, maybe I'd once made her a cocktail with an extra, unmentioned shot of tequila to get her to lower her guard. That's how I'd finally won her over. But arguing about it now was pointless. I gave her leg a weak nudge with my foot. How much longer? I'm so tired. Sometime later, drifting in a hazy state between sleep and consciousness, I felt her lift me gently from the bed. She carried me to the bathroom, washed me with a warm cloth, and then carefully laid me back down. As she pulled the covers over me, I mumbled, half asleep, I didn't put anything in your smoothie. Ava paused. I could feel her looking at me. Then why did it taste so sweet? She asked, an eyebrow raised. I thought for a second, then a sly smile spread across my face. Because it was a strawberry banana smoothie. They're supposed to be sweet. She looked completely unimpressed. Seriously? I hooked my arms around her neck, pulling her down. Just admit you like it when I wear these oversized sleep shirts, I teased, poking her. But this was the first time I wore this one, and you already ripped it. It's 100% cotton. That's like super in right now. Ava turned her head, avoiding my gaze, but I could see the tips of her ears turning a suspicious shade of pink. I don't care what you wear to bed. I was too tired to push it. A wave of exhaustion washed over me, and I closed my eyes, sinking into sleep. After a long moment, I felt her shift, adjusting her position so I could rest more comfortably against her. Fine, she whispered into the darkness. I'll buy you a new one. During the day, Ava worked long shifts at a coffee shop downtown, which left me with a lot of time to kill. I found a chill job as a junior copywriter for a small marketing firm. The pay was mediocre, but the work was easy, and I could shoot the breeze with my coworkers to pass the time. During a lull in the afternoon, one of the guys from the design department, Mark, swung by my desk. Hey, Ethan, you still with that girlfriend of yours? I nodded, a happy, dopey grin spreading across my face. Yep. He leaned against the cubicle wall, shaking his head with theatrical pity. Dude, a guy like you. Why are you settling for a barista? You could do so much better. There are plenty of girls out there with real money. I bristled. Ava is amazing, I shot back. And we're solid. She could be difficult and guarded, but I knew she loved me. Nothing else mattered. The day dragged on. I was buried in a pile of ad briefs, pretending to work while I waited for 5 o'clock when my manager, Sarah, walked in with a new guy in tow. Everyone listen up, she announced, beaming. I want you to meet our newest team member, Leo Chun. He'll be starting with us tomorrow. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. What was the name? Leo Chun, she repeated. Leo. Chun like the morning sun. He had this bright, magnetic energy, with kind eyes and a smile that made you instantly want to be his friend. He started chatting with everyone, and within minutes, he had the whole team laughing. Watching my normally stressed-out manager and my cynical coworkers warm to him so quickly, a horrifying realization began to dawn on me. This was the hero. This was the actual main character. The real hero turned to me, his smile impossibly friendly. Hey man, what's your name? A strangled laugh escaped my lips. Hi, Ethan. Ethan Cole. His eyes widened in surprise. Whoa, Leo and Ethan. Our names sound kind of alike. What a coincidence. Yeah, a coincidence. A coincidence that felt like a sledgehammer, shattering the perfect little fantasy I'd been living in for the past 2 years. Because until this very moment, I had been so stupidly, blissfully certain that I was the one, the hero chosen by fate. It was over. Everything was over. The moment I knew, really knew, that Leo Chun was the hero of the story, the world tilted on its axis. I was drowning in a sea of pure, cold dread. I stumbled out of the office in a daze and walked home on autopilot, my legs feeling like they were filled with sand. Leo's name echoed in my head. How could I have been so wrong? I paced the cramped floor of our apartment, waiting for Ava to get home, every tick of the clock amplifying my anxiety. I thought back to the audiobook, the one that had started this whole mess. The narration had been a bit fuzzy, the audio quality terrible. I never caught the hero's exact name. I just heard a name that sounded like mine and assumed. I just assumed. I thought I'd finally gotten my chance to be the protagonist, to have this epic, sweeping romance. Turns out I was just some random guy, a background character who'd stumbled onto the main stage by mistake. The thought made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. And what had I done with my 2 years of stolen time? I'd lorded my supposed main character status over Ava, making her cook and clean for me, treating her like she existed only to serve my story. I made up a list of rules for her. A good morning kiss was required upon waking, a goodbye kiss was mandatory before leaving the apartment. All those demands, which had seemed so romantic and charming at the time, now felt pathetic and cruel. I'd even made her call me ridiculous, cringy pet names. My king, my everything. How could I have been so arrogant? So stupid? I had taken a simple walk-on part and twisted it into the role of the villain, the toxic ex-boyfriend. The more I thought about it, the deeper the pit in my stomach grew. And that's when I remembered what she'd said when we first met. How she'd looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed, and told me she hated me. I finally understood. She wasn't playing hard to get. She meant it. She really, truly hated me. And what happens to the toxic ex-boyfriend in these stories? I didn't want to think about it, but the miserable endings flashed through my mind. I knew Ava. I knew her strength, her resilience. Once she finally met Leo and realized her own power, I'd be the first person she'd cut out of her life. The thought of the fallout, the inevitable confrontation, sent a shiver of pure terror down my spine. Click. The lock on the front door turned. Ava was home, looking tired after a long day. She shrugged off her worn jacket, revealing a simple white tank top underneath. The soft lines of her body, the gentle curve of her arms. She was beautiful. It made my heart ache. She noticed me staring, and her gaze softened as she met my eyes. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of the tenderness I'd grown used to. I looked at her, at the graceful strength in her posture, and thought, maybe I don't have to wait for her to get her revenge. She looked delicate, but I knew better. The next second, the fresh scent of lemon from her hand soap filled the air, mingling with something uniquely her. She stopped right in front of me, her hand coming up to cup the back of my neck. She leaned in and pressed her lips to mine. Her kiss was deep and demanding, and it caught me completely off guard. Her other hand found my waist, pulling me closer, trying to deepen the kiss even more. My brain finally rebooted. I shoved her away, stumbling back a step, my heart hammering against my ribs. Right now, all I could feel was fear. The intimacy we shared was gone, replaced by a cold dread for the future. The charged atmosphere in the room vanished. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ava slowly raised her head, her voice husky. What are you doing? You're the one who said we have to kiss the second I get home. Her words were laced with confusion and a hint of hurt. Come here, she coaxed, her voice dropping to that low, persuasive tone. We're not done. Usually that voice would melt me. Now it just made my palms sweat. Not today, I stammered, unable to meet her gaze. I stared at the floor, at my shoes, at anything but her. I could feel her entire demeanor shift. Not today. Her voice was sharp cold. Ethan, you can't just decide when you want to kiss me and when you don't. What am I, a toy you can just pick up and put down whenever you feel like it? I scrambled for an excuse. I have a canker sore. It hurts too. It was a terrible lie, and I knew it. Before I could finish, she closed the distance between us, her fingers gripping my chin. Oh yeah? Open up. Let me see where. Her touch was insistent, trying to pry my mouth open to expose my lie. I never expected her to call my bluff so directly. I jerked my head away, and her hand froze in midair. Her expression turned to ice. Fine, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. So now you're lying to me. You've got a lot of nerve, Ethan. The audiobook had described the heroine as a gentle, caring, almost maternal figure. But looking at the storm brewing in Ava's eyes, I finally got it. That gentleness, that care, it was never meant for me. It was reserved for the real hero, for Leo. I was just the imposter who'd stolen his place. And now that the truth was out, I couldn't begin to imagine what was waiting for me. I'll admit it, I'm a coward. Ever since I was inexplicably dropped into this world, my only goal was to live a good life. Instead, I'd made a complete mess of everything. So when the reality hit that the heroine of the story was probably going to make my life a living hell, my first instinct was to run. It was the only solution I could think of. If I ran far enough, to a place where she could never find me, maybe she'd forget all about me once she met Leo. Maybe she'd be so happy with the real hero that she wouldn't have time for revenge. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I needed to move fast. Every second counted. Are you just going to stand there? Dinner's ready. Ava's voice was still cold. She'd made dinner, a simple but delicious-looking roasted chicken with potatoes and green beans, and was waiting for me at our tiny kitchen table. The smell was incredible, and my stomach rumbled traitorously. Say what you will about Ava, but the woman could cook. I swallowed hard and shuffled over to the table. Normally, I would have made her serve me, cutting up my chicken and waiting until my food had cooled to the perfect temperature before taking a bite. But tonight, I didn't dare. I sat down meekly and started eating, my mind racing. I silently cursed my past self for being such an entitled, ungrateful idiot. If I could do it all over again, I would have treated her so much better. As I ate, I could feel the pressure in the room building. The air grew thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. Had I done something else wrong? She seemed even angrier than before. I snuck a look at her, my heart pounding with fear. I had to do something. I decided that before I disappeared for good, I needed to try and leave her with one last good impression. Maybe if she remembered me as being even a little bit nice, her eventual revenge wouldn't be quite so brutal. I scooted my chair closer and gently poked her arm. Dinner is really good tonight. Thank you for making it. My voice was dripping with a syrupy sweetness I rarely used. She ignored me. I poke her again. I'm sorry I lied to you earlier. Please don't be mad at me, okay? I was practically groveling. God, how the tables had turned. It used to be her trying to placate me, not the other way around. The tension in the room finally eased a little. The hard lines of Ava's face softened slightly. She glanced at me out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly so well-behaved, she said, her voice laced with suspicion. All right, what is it this time? What do you want to buy? What? Was that really how she saw me? As some materialistic leech? The question was like a punch to the gut. Forget trying to get on her good side, I thought despairingly. Just run. That night, Ava's mood finally improved. She was so cheerful, in fact, that when I told her I just wanted to sleep, no funny business, she agreed without a fight. The next morning, she gave me her customary goodbye kiss, breakfast already waiting on the table. The second the door clicked shut behind her, I leaped out of bed. It was time to execute my escape plan. I'd been in this world for 2 years, but I'd never really left Ava's side. I didn't know the city, let alone the country. My only option was to call the one person I knew who might be able to help. The phone was an older model iPhone, a gift from Ava. She'd saved up for months to buy it for me. I called my coworker Jessica, who I was friendly with, and after a brief, vague conversation, I had a destination in mind. Tomapack. There wasn't much to take. A few changes of clothes, the cash I had on hand for a bus ticket. The most valuable thing I owned was the iPhone. I could sell it for a decent amount of money. I thought about it for a moment, then placed it squarely in the middle of the kitchen table on top of a hastily scribbled goodbye note. And just like that, I was done with the apartment I had called home for 2 years. It all happened so fast, it wasn't even noon yet. Our building opened onto a dilapidated back alley. To avoid being seen, I slipped out the rear exit instead of the main street. The alley twisted and turned, and I picked up my pace, determined to catch the next bus out of town. The doors and windows of the neighboring buildings were all shut tight, the alley silent and deserted. The thought that I was actually getting away with it, that I was going to save my own skin, made my steps feel lighter. I rounded another corner, a giddy sense of relief washing over me. I looked up and my heart stopped. Leaning against the brick wall, a cigarette held loosely between her fingers, was Ava. Her slender frame was silhouetted against the dingy backdrop, smoke curling around her head, obscuring her expression. She looked up as I approached, her eyes cold and unreadable. I had no idea how long she'd been waiting there. Before I could process what was happening, another figure emerged from the shadows behind Ava. See, Ava? I told you. He was going to take your money and run. I squinted. It was Jessica, my coworker. The same friend I'd called just this morning for advice on where to start a new life. And now she was standing here, accusing me of being a thief. The world went fuzzy at the edges. That's not true. I blurted out. I didn't. Jessica wasn't listening. I warned you about him. Ava, she said, her voice dripping with venom. A guy who looks like that? You really think he was going to settle down with you? He was just using you for your money. She lunged for my backpack. I may have been planning to run, but I wasn't a thief. I clutched the bag to my chest, a panicked, defensive anger rising in my throat. I didn't take any money. What proof do you have? Then open the bag and let us see. Shut up. Ava's voice cut through the air, sharp and final. A chill went down my spine. This was it. She wasn't even going to let me explain. Jessica, however, looked triumphant. You hear that? Open the bag. I was talking to you, Ava said, her gaze shifting to Jessica, her eyes narrowed and dangerous. You can go now. Jessica's face fell. Ava, I'm just trying to help you. Don't be an idiot. She started to say more, but one look at the fury in Ava's expression and she thought better of it. She shot me a dirty look and scurried away. Now, it was just the two of us in the silent alley. My mind was reeling from the accusation. Ava, I swear I didn't steal from you, I said, my voice desperate. You know me better than that. You can check my bag if you don't believe me. My words trailed off as she took a step toward me. She didn't even glance at the backpack. Her eyes were fixed on mine, burning with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. Why were you running? She asked, her voice low and tight. What? She took another step, backing me against the cold brick wall. The space between us crackled with tension. She asked again, her voice barely a whisper. Why were you running? Are you bored with me already, sweetheart? I had never seen Ava this angry. She dragged me back to the apartment, and the second the door was closed, she slammed me against it. Her mouth crashed down on mine, not a kiss, but an assault. It was rough, punishing, fueled by a rage I didn't understand. Her fingers dug into my jaw as she bit down on my lip. A sharp pain shot through me, and I cried out, shoving her away with all my strength. A cruel smirk twisted her lips, and she started to lean in again, but then she stopped. Her eyes met mine, and she must have seen the raw terror on my face. She froze, and the anger in her expression slowly faded, replaced by something else. The furious words she was about to say seemed to die on her lips, turning to ice in her throat. After a long, tense silence, her voice, tight and strained, broke the quiet. Don't go. Please. Don't go. And wait for the other shoe to drop. Wait for her to destroy me. I pressed my hand to my throbbing lip. I'm leaving, I said, my voice firm. She looked like I'd slapped her. Ethan, she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You're the one who started this. You're the one who came after me. Oh God, she was already starting, bringing up the past, building her case against me. I was desperate. I did the only thing I could think of. I groveled. You're right. It's all my fault. I cried, my resolve crumbling. I know. I was wrong. I never should have bothered you. I regret it, I swear. Ava, please just let me go. Okay. She stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. You regret meeting me? I'd known her for 2 years. I knew that beneath her tough exterior, she was proud. But now, she looked completely broken. Why? She asked, her voice barely audible. What did I do? Are you mad at me about something? Her eyes looked so sad, but I couldn't let myself feel it. Ava was the heroine. She was destined to be with the hero. I was just a mistake, a plot hole that needed to be erased. I steeled myself and delivered the killing blow. Because you're broke, Ava. I couldn't look at her, so I stared at the wall, the words tumbling out of me in a rush. I'm young. I don't want to be stuck in this crappy little apartment for the rest of my life. I want more. Don't you get it? And I want someone gentle. You're always so rough. We're not right for each other. Broke. Rough. Every word was designed to gut her, to crush her pride. But still she pressed. But, you said you wanted to make this place a home. You said you loved my cooking. A wave of nausea washed over me. I couldn't look at her. I lied, I said, my voice flat. I was sick of eating that boring, healthy crap anyway. The room fell silent. The only sound was the frantic beating of my own heart. Finally she spoke. Fine, I'll let you go. She insisted I take the phone. At least I could keep in touch with my old friends, she'd said. But when I looked at my contacts, there was hardly anyone in there besides her. I stared at the screen for a long time before popping out the SIM card and tossing in the trash. It was better this way. We were never going to see each other again. When I got to the new city, I had to find an apartment and a job, all on my own. I was almost completely broke when I discovered a thick envelope of cash tucked into a hidden pocket of my backpack. I counted it. $4,625. It was from Ava. That money got me through the toughest couple of months until I landed a new job and got back on my feet. Over time, I made new friends. I became exactly what I was supposed to be, a background character. Life was simple, quiet. It was almost like Ava had never existed. As the years passed, her memory began to fade. I thought I had finally moved on, but the story was finally back on track. Then I saw her at a dinner party. My boss had dragged me along, insisting it was a crucial networking event. Some big-shot investor was there, someone who could make or break our latest project. I was half listening, nodding along, when I pushed open the door to the private dining room. And there she was. She sat at the center of the table, surrounded by people hanging on her every word. Her eyes, cool and emotionless, drifted over to me. For a second, my world stopped. 5 years. In 5 years, Ava had transformed. She was a powerhouse, a rising star in the business world. She sat there with an effortless authority, an invisible gravity that pulled the entire room into her orbit. The Ava from 5 years ago might have argued with me, might have shown her frustration. The woman sitting before me now had all her emotions locked away behind a wall of ice. I quickly looked down, hoping to avoid her gaze, but it was pointless. Her eyes had already swept past me, dismissing me as if I were a complete stranger. My boss immediately started schmoozing, leaving me to my own devices. I found an empty chair in the corner and started loading up a plate. The food, I had to admit, was incredible. I was in the middle of a bite of steak when a hesitant voice said, "Ethan." I looked up. "It really is you. It's been forever, man. You remember me?" It was Leo Chun. He looked exactly the same, still radiating that infectious, golden retriever energy. We used to work together at that marketing firm. Our names were super similar. I couldn't believe he was here. I swallowed my food and managed a nod. "Yeah, I remember you." He clapped me on the shoulder enthusiastically. "How'd you been? You just disappeared on us." "Just, moved. Started over," I said vaguely. Leo opened his mouth to ask another question, but a cool voice cut across the room. "Leo, over here." My heart skipped a beat. It was her voice. I couldn't help it. My head snapped up, my eyes finding her instantly. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the hero. Leo pouted slightly. "My boss is calling," he whispered to me. "Gotta go." He walked away, stepping into the warm glow of the lights at the center of the table, and stood next to Ava. They looked good together, like they were meant to be. The dinner party finally wound down late into the night. People began to trickle out, their cheerful goodbyes echoing in the cavernous hotel lobby. I stood by the entrance, staring out at the city lights, wondering how I was going to get home. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my colleague, Jessica Chong. "Hey, I'm just around the corner. Need a ride?" A wave of relief washed over me. I started walking toward the main entrance, typing out a reply, my eyes glued to the screen. Not paying attention, I nearly walked straight into one of the massive marble pillars in the lobby. I braced for impact, but the collision never came. A warm, firm hand pressed against my forehead, stopping me just in time. The touch was there and gone in an instant. I looked up, dazed, and found myself staring into Ava's cool, distant eyes. She just stood there, her expression unreadable. Ever since I'd walked into that dining room, she had been a complete enigma. I couldn't figure out what she was thinking. Was she still angry? Was she planning something? Leo's gaze bounced between the two of us, a flicker of confusion on his face. Boss, do you two know each other?" My stomach clenched. I held my breath, waiting for her answer. "No," she said, her voice flat, devoid of any emotion. Leo didn't look convinced. He turned to me. "How are you getting home? Do you need a ride?" I could have sworn I heard Ava let out a quiet, derisive laugh. "Don't waste your time on him," she said. The scorn in her voice was so sharp it made Leo flinch. He didn't press the issue. "Sorry about her," he mumbled to me under his breath. "She's been in a weird mood all night." It's fine," I said quickly, waving my hand dismissively. "Someone's coming to get me." The moment the words left my mouth, Ava's head snapped toward me. Her eyes narrowed, and the look she gave me sent a shiver down my spine. Just then, Jessica pulled up to the curb, rolling down her window. "Ethan, come on, let's go," she called out cheerfully. She leaned over, holding out a hot cup of coffee. Here, this will warm you up. It's freezing out here. As Jessica helped me into the car, I glanced back at Ava. I had to know what that look meant. But she had already turned away, her attention elsewhere, as if I didn't exist, as if the whole thing had just been in my head. As it turned out, Jessica lived in the apartment right above mine. After saying good night on the landing, I dragged myself into my apartment, my body buzzing with exhaustion and anxiety. Seeing Ava again had thrown my quiet, carefully constructed life into chaos. I collapsed onto my bed, replaying the night's events over and over. She seemed so calm, so indifferent. Maybe she was over it. Maybe she'd forgotten all about what happened between us. Yeah, that's it, I told myself. We probably wouldn't even see each other again. As long as I stayed out of her way, I'd be fine. Just as I was starting to relax, my doorbell rang. The sudden noise made me jump. A terrible, sinking feeling washed over me. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. My blood ran cold. It was Ava. I stumbled back from the door, my heart pounding in my chest. What was she doing here? Had she followed me home? This was it. She was here for revenge. The doorbell rang again, longer this time, a sharp, insistent buzz that grated on my nerves. I couldn't ignore her forever. Taking a deep breath, I cautiously opened the door, just a crack. I peeked through the opening, my eye level with her chin. Can I help you? Ava looked down at me, her expression unreadable. Is she in there with you? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. What? Are you planning on spending the night together? I was completely lost. Her eyes flickered down, taking in the loose sleep shirt and sweatpants I was wearing. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop another 10 degrees. You wear that in front of her. It took me a second to realize she was talking about Jessica. What? No, she's not here, I said, my voice coming out a little too loud. She raised a skeptical eyebrow. And why should I believe you? The doubt in her eyes made me desperate. You don't believe me? Fine, come in and see for yourself. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. I had just invited my sworn enemy, the woman I was convinced was plotting my downfall, into my home. So there we were, Ava, perched awkwardly on my small, lumpy sofa, and me, standing by the door, watching her like a hawk. The apartment was tiny, and her long legs and confident posture made the space feel even smaller. Her presence was overwhelming. I silently cursed myself for my big mouth. If she was here for revenge, I had just served myself up on a silver platter. Her eyes scanned the room, taking in the cheap furniture and bare walls, before finally settling on me, her gaze lingering on my face. Just when the silence was becoming unbearable, she spoke. Have you been doing okay these past few years? I blinked. Oh, right. This was part of the plan. She was scoping out the enemy's situation. No one wants to see the person who wronged them thriving. I immediately put on my most pathetic, heartbroken expression. No, I said, my voice thick with fake misery. It's been awful. Truly, truly awful. I watched her face, hoping she was buying it. A small frown appeared between her eyebrows. She seemed surprised by my answer. Then why? Why didn't you ever call me? Her voice was strained. I dropped my gaze to the floor, my performance in full swing. I'm sorry, I whispered. I was too ashamed. I couldn't face you. Ava was quiet for a moment. Then, she turned her head away, a bitter, cynical sound escaping her lips. What are you trying to accomplish with this act? Are you trying to make me feel sorry for you? She looked back at me, her eyes hard. It's not going to work, Ethan. I'm not going to be played for a fool again. I shook my head frantically. No, that's not it. I was just a kid back then. I was stupid. But you don't have to worry, I swear. I'm not going to bother you ever again. I just wanted her to believe me. I just wanted her to leave me alone. Her frown deepened. She stood up, towering over me, the warmth and vulnerability from a moment ago gone, replaced by the cool, calculating demeanor of the CEO I'd seen at dinner. She looked down at me, my heart hammering in my chest, and delivered her final, chilling line. I would prefer that. And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the deafening silence, my mind a tangled mess of fear and confusion. After that night, Ava disappeared from my life again. For a while, things went back to normal. The days were quiet, predictable. I started to let my guard down, believing that the storm had finally passed. A few weeks later, news broke that my boss had landed the massive project we'd been chasing. The whole office erupted in celebration. To mark the occasion, the company threw a huge party at a downtown bar. The atmosphere was electric. Everyone was drinking, laughing, basking in the glow of our collective success. My boss, a few too many cocktails in, started making the rounds, insisting that everyone do a celebratory shot with her. I tried to refuse, but she was relentless. After a couple of shots, my already low tolerance for alcohol gave out, and the world started to go fuzzy at the edges. By the end of the night, I was a wreck. Jessica, ever the responsible one, was trying to shepherd me out of the bar. She'd had a few drinks herself, so driving was out of the question. We decided to call an Uber. While we were waiting on the curb, a cold gust of wind hit me, and I shivered. I instinctively leaned into the warmth of the person standing next to me. I heard Jessica laugh softly. She gently draped her coat over my shoulders. "You're going to catch a cold dress like that," she said, her voice full of concern. "You really need to learn how to take care of yourself." I was too drunk to understand what she was saying. I just stared at her blankly, my head swimming. The pale yellow light of the street lamp cast long shadows on the pavement. Jessica's gaze dropped from my face to my lips. She seemed to be wrestling with a decision. After a moment, she took a deep breath. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly, I've liked you for a long time. You have to know that, right?" I was in another world, lost in an alcoholic haze. Her words didn't register. I just continued to stare, mesmerized by the way the light caught her hair. Her face drew closer, her breath warm against my cheek. "You feel it too, don't you?" she whispered, her voice full of hope. From an outsider's perspective, it must have looked like a scene from a movie. Two people, bathed in the soft glow of the streetlights, about to share a tender, romantic kiss. But just as her lips were about to touch mine, a powerful wave of revulsion washed over me. This felt wrong. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run. Suddenly, a hand shot out and grabbed the back of my collar, yanking me backward with surprising force. I stumbled, falling back into a firm, warm, and terrifyingly familiar embrace. Even after 5 years, even in my drunken state, I knew that scent. I knew that touch. "Ava," I mumbled, my voice slurring. Jessica, startled, jumped back. She stared at the two of us, her eyes wide with shock. Do you two know each other?" I was leaning heavily against Ava, my head spinning. I heard her repeat my name, her voice a low purr. "Ethan." The way she said it was playful, but with a dangerous undercurrent. Then, her eyes as sharp and cold as shards of glass, locked onto Jessica. "Who gave you permission to call him that?" she asked, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. The venom in her tone could have frozen fire. Ava didn't even bother to acknowledge Jessica's stunned silence. She half-dragged, half-carried me to her car, a sleek, black sedan parked down the street. She opened the passenger door and unceremoniously deposited me inside. The drive was silent, but the tension in the car was so thick I could barely breathe. Ava's face was a stony mask, but I could feel the waves of anger rolling off her. The air crackled with unspoken fury. I was still drunk, but I was sober enough to know I was in serious trouble. I had to get away. Every time I made a move toward the door handle, her hand would shoot out, her fingers wrapping around my wrist like a steel cuff, pulling me back against her. When we got to her place, I made a break for it the second we were inside. I didn't care where I went. I just knew I needed to put as much distance between us as possible. A dry, humorless laugh escaped her lips. I saw a flash of something in her eyes, anger, frustration, but also a deep, profound disappointment. She grabbed my wrist and yanked me toward her, my body colliding with hers. The room was dark, her face half hidden in shadow, but I could feel the intensity of her presence, a suffocating, predatory energy. The next thing I knew, her hand was around my throat. It wasn't tight enough to choke me, but it was firm enough to make my heart stop. And then her lips were on mine, hard and bruising. In that moment, the sophisticated, composed CEO I'd seen at dinner was gone. In her place was something raw, something feral. A cornered animal, lashing out with all its pain and fury. Her kiss was a storm of conflicting emotions, rage, hurt, and a desperate, possessive longing that had been buried for 5 long years. And then, through the brutal kiss, I heard a sound, a choked, wounded sob. "Ethan, I hate you," she whimpered, her voice breaking. "Why can she touch you like that? What does she have that I don't?" Each word was torn from her, heavy with the weight of years of unanswered questions and unhealed wounds. A sharp, stinging pain on my lip shocked me back to reality. I tasted blood. The metallic tang in my mouth was the last straw. I shoved her away, my mind reeling. This wasn't right. She was supposed to be with Leo. They were supposed to be living their happily ever after. What was this? Was this some kind of twisted game to her? Was messing with me, the guy who broke her heart, some kind of thrill? Ever since we'd met again, I had been walking on eggshells, groveling, terrified of what she might do to me. And now this unprovoked, violent kiss? The injustice of all, combined with the alcohol coursing through my veins, finally made something in me snap. My eyes welled with tears of frustration and confusion. I raised my hand and slapped her across the face. The sharp crack echoed in the silent room. Her head snapped to the side. In the dim light, I could see the muscles in her neck tense, a vein throbbing beneath her skin. The room was so quiet I could hear my own ragged breathing. A faint red mark was already starting to form on her cheek. The reality of what I had just done hit me like a ton of bricks. The tears that had been threatening to fall were instantly sucked back in by a fresh wave of terror. I took a half step back, my voice trembling. Ava, I braced myself for the explosion, but it never came. Instead, I heard a quiet, ragged gasp. It wasn't a sound of pain. It was a sound of release, of something close to pleasure. She slowly turned her head back to face me, her voice a low, husky murmur. You like that? Here. She tilted her head, offering me her other cheek. This side too. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine. Did you hurt your hand? Let me see. The sudden shift in her demeanor was so jarring, so completely unexpected, that for a moment I felt like I was back in our tiny apartment 5 years ago. I shook my head, hiding my hand behind my back. What about Leo? I asked, my mind grasping for some semblance of logic. How can you do this to him? She frowned, a look of genuine confusion on her face. What does he have to do with anything? Aren't you? With him? I stammered. Her expression hardened, her teeth clenching. I don't like him, she snapped. What is going on in that head of yours? He's my assistant. That's it. Nothing more. She doesn't like him? The words echoed in my brain, throwing my entire understanding of the world into chaos. 5 years, and she hadn't fallen in love with the hero? This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. She looked at my bewildered face, and a weary sigh escaped her lips. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Forget it, she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. There's no point in talking to a drunk. We'll sort this out in the morning. I woke up in a strange bed, my head pounding with the dull, relentless ache of a killer hangover. I slowly opened my eyes, blinking against the unfamiliar light. The room was spacious and minimalist, decorated in cool shades of gray and white. The other side of the king-size bed was empty. I sat up, rubbing my temples, trying to piece together the fragments of the previous night. The memories came back in disjointed flashes. Being bitten, slapping her, asking her about Leo. And her answer, who told you we were together? He's just my assistant. I froze. She doesn't like the hero. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The plot, the one I had based my entire life on for the past 7 years, had gone completely off the rails. Thinking back on Ava's behavior since we'd reconnected, the coldness, the possessiveness, the bizarre mood swings, it all started to look different. I thought she was plotting some elaborate revenge. But what if her revenge was just this confusing, push-pull game of hot and cold? This, biting me like some feral animal? The thought was so absurd it was almost funny. God, that's messed up, I thought, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my chest. A vague, half-formed idea flickered at the edge of my consciousness, but it was gone before I could grab it. I couldn't make sense of any of it. Frustrated, I decided to get up and find her. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I swung my legs out of bed and walked to the door. I turned the handle. It didn't budge. I tried again. Locked. She locked me in. That's when I noticed the tray on the bedside table. A plate of toast, a glass of orange juice, and a small bowl of fruit, all perfectly arranged. Someone had clearly been in here while I was asleep. But right now, food was the last thing on my mind. I started searching the room, pulling open drawers, looking under the bed, desperate to find a key. In the bottom drawer of the dresser, I found a small, ornate wooden box with a combination lock. A strange sense of curiosity washed over me. I tried her birthday. Incorrect. I tried my birthday. Incorrect. On a whim, I tried a series of numbers that had once been significant to us. Still wrong. I was getting frustrated, ready to give up, when another date popped into my head. I punched in the numbers. 0-5-2-0. May 20th. The day I first walked into her life. Click. The lock sprang open. Inside the box, there was a single item, a worn, leather-bound journal. My heart started to pound. I had a feeling, a powerful, gut-wrenching feeling, that the answers I was looking for were inside. I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't. But at that point, I didn't care. My curiosity was a roaring fire, and all my moral objections were just tinder. I opened it. My hands trembled as I opened the journal. The yellowed pages were filled with Ava's elegant, cursive script, a chronicle of her innermost thoughts. The first entry was dated May 20th, 1990, the day we met. Some guy just showed up at my door. Who is he? What does he want? He just inserted himself into my life, and I don't know what to think. I could feel her suspicion, her weariness, radiating from the page. I really had just barreled into her life like a wrecking ball. I turn the page. May 22, ND. He's constantly all over me. I can't get him to leave me alone. He's so annoying. A shadow I can't seem to shake. A small smile touched my lips. That sounded about right. I had been relentless, convinced I was the hero on a mission. The entry for May 23rd made my heart skip a beat. He spiked my drink. I hate him for it. But his lips were so soft. I can't stop thinking about it. I'm so angry, but there's something else too. Something I don't understand. My face grew hot. That was the night of our first kiss, after I'd loosened her up with a little extra tequila. I had thought it was just a necessary step in the hero's journey, but for her, it had been something more. Something confusing and real. I kept reading. May 25th. He expects me to cook and clean for him. Am I his maid? I told him no. He started pouting and giving me the silent treatment. So I went out and bought him a new shirt and made his favorite dinner. The way his face lit up when he saw it. It made me happy. Then he leaned over and kissed me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. God, does he really love me that much? My own eyes started to burn. All this time, she had been doing these things for me, not because I demanded it, but because she wanted to. June 7th. Now he wants me to call him my king. It's so embarrassing. But he loves me so much. I guess I can humor him. And maybe I like how much he needs me. I had to cover my mouth to stifle a sob. The sweet, ridiculous pet names I'd forced on her. They hadn't been a burden. The final entry in that section was from June 27th. It was a single, perfect sentence. My king, I love you too. The handwriting was flawless, as if she had practiced it over and over. A tear finally escaped and rolled down my cheek. While I was busy playing a role, she had actually truly fallen in love with me. I frantically flipped through the rest of the journal, but the pages were blank. Then, 2 years later, a new entry appeared. December 9th, 1992. He's gone. He didn't even stay for Christmas. He said he never loved me. He said I was too poor. The ink was shaky, blurred in several places by what could only have been tears. A crushing weight settled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. The cruel words I had thrown at her that day came rushing back, each one a fresh stab to my own heart. The next entry, a year later to the day, was only 3 words. I hate him. The letters were carved into the page, the pen strokes deep and angry. I could feel the raw, visceral pain behind them. The entries from 1996 were more frequent, more frantic. Why won't he answer my calls? I have money now. Why won't he just pick up the phone? Is he okay? Did he find someone else? I can't find him. I hate him. I hate him so much. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him. I hate that he left me. I hate that he lied to me. I hate how easily he walked away. I hate that he doesn't love me. Page after page was filled with the word hate, but beneath the anger, I could feel a desperate, aching longing. The hate was a shield, a way to protect her broken heart. The last entry was dated January 1st, 1997. I found him. The moment I saw him again, I didn't know what to feel. Hate, longing, but mostly just love. I closed the journal, my vision blurred by tears. For 5 years, she had never stopped loving me. Even after everything I had done, even when she told herself she hated me, her heart had never let me go. I heard footsteps approaching the door and quickly shoved the journal back into its box. The door clicked open, and Ava walked in, holding a glass of water. "You're awake," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Here, drink this. It'll help with the hangover." I took the glass, our fingers brushing for a brief moment. We both flinched. The air in the room was thick with a strange, new energy, awkward but also intimate. "Listen," I started, my voice hoarse. "About last night. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have hit you." Ava's eyes flickered away. "It's fine," she muttered. "I deserved it." I watched her, and for the first time, I noticed the faint blush on the tips of her ears. My heart hammered in my chest. She was embarrassed. "Ava," I said, taking a deep breath. "I read your journal." Her body went rigid. She whipped her head around to face me, a look of panic in her eyes. I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I know I shouldn't have, but I had to know." Her expression shifted from shock to anger, and finally, to a kind of weary resignation. "What did you see?" "Everything," I whispered. "From the day we met to the day you found me." She was silent for a long time. Just when I thought she wouldn't answer, she let out a long, slow breath. "So now you know," she said, her voice barely audible. "I hate you, but I also—" She trailed off. "I could never let you go." My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. We were the same. We had both been hiding our true feelings behind a wall of anger and pride. "Ava," I said, my courage finally returning. I reached out and took her hand. "If I told you that the reason I left, it wasn't because you were poor, would you believe me?" She looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Then why? I took a deep breath, ready to finally tell her the whole insane truth. I thought I was in a book, a really tropey, melodramatic romance novel. I looked her straight in the eye, willing her to believe me. I heard this story, and the main character had a name that sounded like mine. I got into my head that I was him, and when the hero's actual counterpart, Leo, showed up, I realized I was just a side character. Ava frowned. What are you talking about? I know it sounds crazy, I said desperately, but it was real to me. I transmigrated or something. I thought I was the main character in a story, and that's why I pursued you so hard. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, and finally settled on something I couldn't quite read. So, you only came after me because you thought it was part of the plot. I looked down ashamed. At first, yes, but then I met her gaze again, my voice full of conviction. Then I really fell in love with you. I only ran away because when I realized I wasn't the hero, I was terrified that you would get your revenge on me. Ava's brow furrowed. Revenge? For what? Because in the story, the heroine is supposed to end up with the hero, I explained, feeling more foolish by the second. And me? I was the toxic ex-boyfriend. The villain. My kind of character always gets a terrible ending. She suddenly burst out laughing, a bright, beautiful sound that filled the room. Ethan, what in the world goes on in that head of yours? There's no plot. There's no hero or heroine. This is just life. I stared at her, dumbfounded. You mean this isn't a book? Of course not, she said, shaking her head in amusement. Leo is just my assistant. I have absolutely no romantic feelings for him. And as for you, her expression softened, her eyes full of a love that was real and undeniable. Whatever your reasons were for coming into my life, the end result is the same. I fell in love with you. My mind went blank. If this wasn't a story, then what had I been torturing myself over for all these years? I had been a prisoner in a cage of my own making. So, I asked, my voice barely a whisper, "You're not going to get revenge on me?" A dangerous, playful glint appeared in her eyes. Who said I wasn't? She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a seductive murmur. Do you have any idea how much I suffered for the past 5 years? Wondering every single day if you had found someone else, if you had forgotten all about me. Her voice caught in a wave of guilt and love so powerful it almost knocked me over, washed through me. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. I'm sorry, I whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I was such an idiot. She rested in my embrace for a moment, then pulled back slightly. How are you going to make it up to me? I looked into her sparkling eyes, my heart soaring. Anything. Just tell me. A wicked smile spread across her face. For starters, all those ridiculous pet names you made me use. I want to hear you say them. To me. My face instantly caught fire. All right now. Right now, she confirmed, her eyes dancing with mischief. Let's start with my queen. I took a deep breath and mumbled, my queen. I can't hear you, she teased. My queen, I said, my voice cracking, my face burning. Ava nodded, satisfied. Good. Next. One by one, she made me repeat every single cringy, over-the-top term of endearment I had ever forced her to say. With each one, her smile grew wider, and my face grew hotter. By the time I got to the last one, I was ready to die of embarrassment. She leaned in close, her lips brushing against my ear. You know, she whispered, back then, when you made me say those things. I pretended to hate it, but I used to practice them in secret. I looked at her, stunned. Her eyes were full of a playful, tender light. Especially my husband. I spent hours practicing that one in front of the mirror just to make sure I got the tone right. My heart felt like it was going to dissolve into a puddle of pure, liquid sugar. All this time, she had been just as lost in our story as I was. After that day, Ava and I started over. But this time, there were no roles to play, no script to follow. I wasn't the self-proclaimed hero, and she wasn't the long-suffering heroine. We were just us. We moved into her apartment, and our lives fell into a comfortable rhythm. She was still a powerhouse at work, and I was still a copywriter. The days were simple, but they were filled with a quiet, profound happiness. One Saturday morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting stripes across the bed. I woke up slowly, my mind still fuzzy with sleep. Ava was already awake, propped up on her elbow, watching me. Morning, I mumbled, rubbing my eyes. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she asked, Ethan, if you woke up one day and found yourself in another book, what would you do? I froze, then realized she was worried. I pulled her into my arms, holding her close. Then I would find my way back to you, I said, my voice serious. It doesn't matter what world I'm in. I will always find you. Her eyes lit up, but she still pretended to be unimpressed. Smooth talker. It's true, I said, kissing her forehead. And I know something now that I didn't know before. There's no such thing as fate, no destined hero and heroine. The reason we're together is because we chose each other, because we love each other. She finally smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that was warmer than the sun. That's better. I laughed, pulling her even tighter. You know, you're a pretty good actress yourself. You had me completely fooled. She playfully pinched my side, and I yelped in mock pain, using the opportunity to roll over and pin her beneath me. The sunlight illuminated her face, highlighting the soft curve of her cheek, the gentle arch of her eyebrow. I traced the outline of her face with my finger, overwhelmed with a sense of gratitude. Grateful for the bizarre audiobook, grateful for the ridiculous misunderstanding, grateful for all the wrong turns that had somehow led me right here to her. What are you thinking about? Ava asked softly. I lowered my head and captured her lips with mine. I'm thinking, I said against her mouth, about how lucky I am. She kissed me back, her voice a happy murmur. Me too. The sun was warm, the world was quiet, and life was good. In a world without a script, we had finally found our own happy ending.